The English wheel, a tool as timeless as the cars it helps create. With its graceful arcs and steady pressure, it allows craftsmen to coax steel into curves as smooth and elegant as the flowing lines of a vintage supercar. It's a dance of metal and skill, where each pass stretches the material, refining it, shaping it, and bringing raw aluminium to life. The English wheel isn't just a tool, it's the bridge between vision and reality, where art meets engineering in perfect harmony. Last week on Project Jigsaw, we got our bundle of stakes installed and did some exhaust testing, and it sounded pretty rad.
We were excited to do more testing this week with more mufflers, try it with and without a crossover, but at this point, testing's a little premature, and while we're all about temporary testing just doesn't make any sense. Besides the exhaust system, all of your engine sound is changed by things like compression, cams, heads, induction, all of which is going to change on our engine, and so any testing we do now is going to change after that.
So we're going to hold off on more testing until we rebuild the engine, which will be soon, so don't worry about that. This week, however, we're going to continue working on the doors. So we're going to build a door skin out of aluminium so this thing can be one whole side of a car. So what we have on the side of the car is like a traditional wireform. The entire wireform here shows what we're going to do for the door skin. There's a curve that runs up vertically, and if you go in a straight line down the side, it actually flares out towards the front to the front wheel. And then up top, up here, we have a crease that runs through for two different planes to give a little bit more depth and dimension to the door. It's important that we get all these things right so that the car looks correct, and we don't have like a slab side. This is not some old American muscle car. This is going to be a 1960s inspired supercar. It's gonna be curvy, it's gonna be sexy, it's gonna look fast when it's sitting still, and also drive fast. Tony made this wireframe a couple weeks ago. He did a great job on it. Now it's my turn to take over and turn this wireframe into aluminium. And to start, first thing we gotta do is make a template. Earlier, we did not like the corner of the fender and how it transitioned into the door, or the lack thereof of a door, but you know what I mean. So we cut it off and actually removed this outer fender piece as well. And it flows a lot better with the wiring, which means we have to kind of remake this as well. And what I'm wondering right now is if I should just make this all one piece and include that as well, or have multiple pieces I stitch together. It gets really complicated when you think about it, and it's kind of overwhelming to think about as a whole. Due to the complexity of this panel, poster board is definitely not gonna be the way to go. This is gonna be too rigid. But I had an idea. This plastic. This is blue plastic sheeting for when you paint a car to mask it, to make sure you don't get overspray on the car. A functional way to make a template is using a fabric sheet, which I do not have on hand. I could drape the sheet on here, pull it nice and tight, mark the edges, cut it, and that would be like the starting point. I don't have sheets here. We're not a bedding warehouse, and I don't feel like driving over to Walmart, which is actually really close by, but we're gonna skip that part. More importantly, I have this plastic sheeting on hand. So my idea is to take the sheeting, drape it on here all nice, you know, draw on it, cut it down, and I think it'll effectively work the same way. There's only one way to find out. And I think the benefit here too is I can find magnets and magnetize the sheeting to the steel rod we have here, which would even be better. These are some big brain moves. Bear with me, it's my birthday and I was out very late being a good person and responsible. So what I'm finding is really nice about this plastic sheeting is like, so back here, it's a relatively almost flat plane in this direction, whereas up here, it has a big hump. I can lay this down to be almost wrinkle-free, not entirely, number one, because I just don't have enough magnets, which is the whole thing, but number two, the plastic will just curve the way it needs to get the pattern, because ultimately, I just need to get the shape that I'm starting with, and then I'll add some more shape afterwards. It's really important to have the starting shape so that I know what to cut out of the aluminum and not have too much or too little material. And I think this is the key. All right, I think we're in business now. I'm laid out. I have my main feature line on the template as well. So in theory, I should be able to take this off, lay it on a piece of aluminum, and be able to begin shaping. Let's try it. It's a little frustrating because the length of this door skin is literally like 6 inches too long to go this way and be an end cut off of our 4x, I think it's 10 sheet of aluminum. So we'll get them next time, maybe. So we have our starting piece of metal now, and you'll notice that it's flat, obviously, but also has not very many features other than this one line that's the other plane of the panel. So I would like to do something to change that. On our wireframe, Tony did relatively equal spaced pieces of wire. And what I can do is I can measure them, lay them out onto the panel we have over there, then take a profile gauge and measure each radius going through each curve, and then write them down on that panel. And that'll work as a map for where I'm supposed to shape and bend and shrink and stretch. So I'm not just like willy-nilly bending and hoping it's kind of right. Because sure, I could do that and make it look kind of right, but I want it to be right. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time doing a layout and getting our shapes down on the panel. All right, I got my haphazard guide here. I say haphazard because it came out a little rough, but it's gonna be functional. What this panel's telling me right now, from both visually and also with the numbers I wrote down from the radius gauge, is there's a lot of 36s, and that 36 radius is very, very light. It's just a very, very subtle curve. So when you're shaping a panel, especially on the English wheel, it's really nice to have your panel have a little bit of tension in it. And also, there's not really a straight panel on any car whatsoever. I mean, some cars here and there might have something, but for the most part, 99% of panels on a car are perfectly straight. Otherwise, they look really buckly and weird. You can look at the Cybertruck, for example. The Cybertruck, if you look at the reflections on the Cybertruck, it's kind of wavy and buckly. So what we're gonna do here is I'm gonna take the 36 wheel on the English wheel, and I'm gonna wheel all the 36 spots, give this panel a little bit of shape, a little bit of body to it so it's easier to handle, and we'll work from there. So I'm gonna go from softest to hardest radius, 36s all the way down through here, then bring up to our 9s and 12s up here, buckled over, bead roll or bead edge here, then do the top. And then hopefully it all lines up. I'm sure there's gonna be a lot more fiddling to make it work though. If this is what I think it is, somebody just made my birthday the best birthday ever, and there's no return address on it, so I have no idea who sent it. I couldn't find the utility knife, so I'm using this one.
He didn't continue to look after he found something.
It's a legit one too.
You got a fan.
I'm about to be very annoying, and I'm already annoying.
It's hard to believe that it would increase, but you just found your biggest fan.
Oh my God. I've wanted one of these for an excessively long amount of time, and I have no legitimate reason to own one other than the fact that I just want one.
You don't really have a real reason to want one.
I do. It's called I love him so much. Thank you, whoever sent this. I love you.
Yep, thank you very much.
Look at him go.
Guess who's gonna show up behind me the next time I gotta weld something?
I'm so happy right now. Very nice.
When you're working on a big project like this and doing it for YouTube, sometimes you tack things together as you're mocking them up, and now it's time to get a lot of this welded. A lot of it's held together with just a couple of tacks, and I want to stay out of Ryan's way while he's shaping the doors, so I'm going to get something done while he's getting something done. I was getting ready to weld this, but it needs to be cleaned up, so I'm gonna take it over to the blast cabinet and sandblast it first. Eastwood has worked with us to get some extremely crucial equipment over the years, and we thank them for sponsoring this video. To this day, we use their welders and plasma cutters every day on Project Jigsaw and in our shop. Today through Monday, they are having the best sale of the year. Some of our favorite products are at the lowest price they will ever be. The TIG 200 LCD that we use every day is under $1,000. Their CNC table has been invaluable to us on Jigsaw, and right now you can get it for under $4,000. Plus, you can use our discount code Crucible10 to save even more money. Eastwood's been working with us for a long time. They're real car enthusiasts, they're local, and we would really like you to support them. Check out the link in our bio to visit their website, and don't forget to use code Crucible10 at checkout to save some money.
One of the most important things with English wheeling and metal shaping in general is consistency. Consistency is the most important part because as I'm wheeling, I need my passes to be as consistent as possible. If they're not consistent, I'll have lumps. I won't know what's going on later because I'll be like, oh, I stretched that area consistently, and then I'll go back and try to make some adjustments, but it won't act the way I expect it to because my consistency is off. So it's very important to try to have nice, consistent passes. And I'm saying, it's funny because I'm saying this, I'm struggling with keeping this pass consistent, and it'll probably bite me. So I'm gonna swing around the other side of this panel quick. Because the other thing that's really hard about wheeling large panels like this is a thing called panel dive, which is where when I'm wheeling it, the weight of the panel wants to drop. So I'm holding up back here right now, so it's not twisting the panel down. Those are turned into little like buckles in the panel that are kind of hard to get out. I mean, it's not impossible to deal with, but not typically fun to deal with either. So it's important to keep it supported. So something like a door skin or like a roof skin, you typically want two people for, but Tony's indisposed currently. So I'm gonna attempt to do this myself with some creative lifting, if you will. Because even right now as I'm wheeling, that tip up there is dropping, and I'm trying to use my hand back here and push up my fingers to keep the panel up like that, to keep that from happening, and it seems to be working pretty well. We're in the early stages, so we should be pretty fine. Now that we have the 36 roughed in on the bottom 2/3 of the panel, we're gonna hop onto the top hump up here, which is the front edge of the door, where it curves into the feature line. And that's a 9 to a 12 to a 12 to a 12 again, I guess. So there's a whole curve along the top here. Let's see if I can manage to not screw this up, because I'm a little nervous about it. So I've got a lot of the basic shape of the panel right now. If you were to go vertically anyway, my 12 through here, 12 here, up to a 9 radius through here, 36 at the bottom, it's got a nice crown to it. However, there is an issue, and the main issue here is that the center of the crown is bulging out. Whereas if you look at it down our wireframe up here, you notice that the center of the door is actually in, and it bulges up this way. It's lower in this middle, and it's curved up in the ends, kind of like a potato chip. There's a couple ways I can go about this to turn this into a potato chip. One way I could do is I could stretch up through here to give it more material, because the way it's curved over, it's gonna wanna push it out this way and potato chip it. The other thing I could do is stretch the ends. So I could stretch the end down through here, fade it in, stretch this end down through here, fade it in, and that would crown this out as well. I've been thinking a lot about what I should do, and the conclusion I arrived at is I should probably do both. And the one thing I need to be careful of though is up top here, this dark Sharpie line is a line that's like a break. It starts soft here, but it's gonna break over up here. And I don't want this to be right and have everything be right, then break that over and then lose all the shape I have because it's gonna potato chip wrong. So I'm gonna probably have to do a little bit of stretching up here, break that over, fade it in, and then stretch here and here to compensate, and then stretch in the front and the rear to compensate, to get that to lift. That's what I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do. I could also stretch the bottom as well to get a similar effect, because it's more straight across the bottom. I kinda wanna stay off the bottom as much as possible. So this is where it gets really tricky to have a lot of different shapes into one panel, but we're gonna get this done. We're gonna do this. So So what I'm doing right now is what I was saying earlier. I went up through here, I stretched with the planching hammer, got the potato chip a little bit, then we're getting the rest of it with the English wheel. So I'm just going over and over and over again on the front edge of the panel right here. So this is like the front edge of the door where the fender transitions in. And as I keep wheeling, it's stretching more and more and more, causing that to lift. So it's giving me that potato chip effect I needed. And essentially, this door is what's called a reverse curve the whole way through it. And reverse curves are one of the hardest things to make in metal shaping. I don't know why we hate ourselves this much that we keep doing this, but here we are. If you're gonna make a beautiful car, you're gonna have to, you're gonna have to fight through it, I guess. This is the stuff that makes me a little nervous because it is a very hard panel to wheel, and the longer I keep working on it, the more time I have in it. When it comes to metal shaping, a lot of the time you just like can't tell if it's gonna work out or not until the end. The last like 10% is what defines if the panel's gonna be good or not. And there's a lot of steps before that, so I'm a little nervous, but we're doing okay. Confidence, I gotta be confident. I'm not nervous, I'm confident. All right, so it's starting to get there. I have a couple of things working against me right now. One of them being that there's no way to like really clamp this down exactly. I can't like force it into shape because it wants to push certain ways, but if you kind of push it in, it'll spring the right direction. I have it clamped to some spots in the car, but they're not the right spots. I think what I need to do next though is I'm gonna work on this top piece here where it's supposed to tip over. That'll give us like a nice rigid edge that I can then shrink or stretch and it'll like kind of lock in some. So what I've done here is I've gone with my tape line and defined this feature line, which from here is just a barrel and then it kind of fades into a hard line that's a crease that'll be creased up here. So we're gonna start with that first here. I'm gonna fold this over, turn it into a barreled edge here, probably trim this back some because it's just a little excessively long and that'll kind of help a little bit. And then I can really put some more shape into here and it will stop kind of bleeding out. That's what's happening. This edge should help keep it from bleeding off. The other thing that I still don't like is the center of this is just out too far. I kind of wanted to actually potato chip in like we talked about. It's starting to potato chip in this end. This end needs more stretch though to flare into what's going on back here. It's definitely a challenge. And I'm sure on camera it doesn't translate well. Like it doesn't look like I've done a lot, but I promise you there's a lot of shape in this panel right now. Onward and upward. All right, I've got my edge here pretty well defined, just roughed in for now until we fully agree on the transition. Because right now it's like peaked outwards up to about here, then it reverses and inverses inwards. I just was shrinking up here to kind of drop that down in. The current challenge is getting this now to potato chip out, which is kind of a funny reoccurring theme. I keep saying that I need to get the panel to potato chip more. And it is potato chipping more. And I feel like there's probably a better term than potato chipping, but for layman's terms, I think it works pretty well. So let's put this thing back in the fryer and see if I can get the curl some more. Okay, I'm gonna stretch the crap out of it with either the planching hammer or the English wheel or both. There's only two clamps holding this whole door skin right now. This one right here, and it's still wrapping hard against the top right here.
Nice.
Yeah, it actually wants to be where it's at. And that took a lot of effort. So it's still rough. Like if you run your hand along it, it's a little wavy, but it's getting it to be the right shape.
A door shape, yeah.
Yeah, like the door we were imagining in our heads. At least I was imagining in my head. Hopefully it's the one that Tony was imagining as well.
And part of the rocker, yep.
Yeah,
the shape bleeds down, but that's good.
Yeah, keep in mind like there's an extra inch up here that's gonna get trimmed off and wrapped around to the actual door. The bottom down here is gonna come up into the door sill. Yeah, it's way way oversized, so then we can figure out our door gaps and cut them in and all that stuff.
Yeah, save the comments for that looks like a truck door until we actually get our cut lines in here.
There's about like 80 times more shape in that panel than any panel in the Cybertruck, so leave me alone. You're probably wondering why I have such a vendetta against the Cybertruck currently. You'll find out in our SEMA video when that comes out later. There were also far too many Cybertrucks this year, and they certainly stood out. Tony, you look so official with your badge.
Oh, I am. I wasn't when I got here, but now I'm official.
I'm gonna show you a one-of-a-kind vehicle. I've seen 20 already today.
What's the hot new car?
I think it's the Cybertruck. Everyone's got one. This year's SEMA has been sponsored by Frigidaire. The door's officially roughed in. I love the way this door looks. I love how the top transitions across. You'll also notice most of the panels on this car are just clecoed on, clamped on, they're overlapped, which means they don't fit exactly where they're supposed to. It's almost like they're swelled out. We're gonna be tackling that soon and getting these panels to fit nice and tight and refined. But for now, as she sits, I think she looks glorious.
Right now it's a glorious armadillo, which is kind of cool.
I see that.
Yeah, but even more so, like it looks way cooler than I think you can just appreciate on video. And I'm super stoked about this door. I was kind of concerned. I didn't want it to feel slab-sided, and that feature takes care of that. And it just has enough curve, so
it's like a potato chip.
It's a way more refined shape than a potato chip, so good job on that, Ryan.
Thank you.
Check back next week for more Project Jigsaw. We have a lot to be thankful for. Thanks for hanging in the shop with us.